That's how you practice. You don't practice in the quietude of a shooting range where everything is safe and quiet and nice, and then you go into battle where everything is chaos. You don't do that. You practice for the chaos. And this I think is where military people have an advantage over others. I don't know if you remember, but one time an American admiral was talking to a Russian admiral. This was way back in the 90s. And the Russian admiral asked the American admiral, why does the American Navy do so well in wartime? And the American admiral said, because war is chaos and we practice that on a daily basis. And I think there's a certain element of truth in the situation we've got right now, is that if you are not used to chaos, if you are not used to responding quickly to external shocks in your organization, you are going to really struggle moving forward. And
are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now. And we are back on STS, Sharpen the Spear podcast, with another incredible guest I've got, and it's Dr. Commander Mary Kelly. And I can't do all the other initials she has before her name because there's too many, and I am just not going to do it. You're just too accomplished. But with all that being said, we're going to get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. And Commander, no one knows Mary Kelly like Mary Kelly. So Mary, bring us up to speed. Give us a little backstory. I know you got a rich one. Bring it up, and we're going to get into the conversation.
Richard, I need your folks to know I am an average gal trying to do an above average job every single day. That's what it is. And for me, effort matters, moving forward matters, just heading in the right direction every single day matters. As you know, I started out my military career. I went to the Naval Academy, very fortunate to graduate way back in the 80s. Then I got sent to Asia. I spent the next 17 years in Asia, bebopping around the Pacific. I am a Westpac sailor, is what I am. Started out in intelligence and then did logistics. And I started out looking for Russian submarines and then other countries' submarines, and then a few terrorists, and then the Republican Guard. And then I got into some logistical issues, part of the team that ran Pearl Harbor, part of the team that ran Navy personnel and pay issues for the Pacific. I got to be a chief of police for a couple of years. That was good fun. I grew up in Texas. That wasn't really a stretch. And, just your normal career, you bop around every 2 to 3 years. And I need your audience to know that the best thing about the military, besides all the things that they already know, is that if you don't like one job, one position, one boss, or one geographical location, just wait it out a year. Something's going to change. And right now is when I think people need to understand, look, everything in life is about change. And it's just about rolling with it, controlling what you can control, and letting go of a whole lot of other things.
That is awesome. And, okay, I was going to say this, and I mean this in a very complimentary way. You have done all this, tell me you're in the 80s, and you look like you're maybe 30. Okay, so I know if you're only listening to this audio where you don't know that, but I'm like looking at the headshots, and now you're here, and I'm going, there's no way. So we're going to talk about this because you're incredibly accomplished, and like we said off the air, you get things done. Okay, we keep moving forward, and this is a huge thing that we talk about on STS is imperfect action, and just making the moves and stuff. So I'm excited to dive into this stuff, and I love that you've got the diverse experiences, from the Navy during that time, everything else you're doing. And you've read like 15 books. You left that out.
Yeah,
that's a lot
I think
of books.
I'm actually up to 20. Yeah, I'm up to like 20. I came out with Stop Procrastinating Tomorrow. Last year was my 2024 book. I got to tell you just real fast on that. I wrote it during COVID because I was looking around COVID and I was actually irritated at people because they weren't doing anything. They're sitting there just wallowing in all this self-pity and global pandemic. And I called one of my buddies. His name's Lee Ellis, Colonel Lee Ellis. He's an Air Force guy, but he was a POW in Vietnam. I'm like, okay, How are you handling all these people who are complaining while they are locked up in their 3,000 square foot homes with DoorDash, plenty of food, comfy beds, round the clock Netflix, tons of entertainment? Oh, all those house projects that they said, if only I had time to do them, all racked and stacked, ready to go. And they're complaining about being bored. How do you handle that? And Lee Ellis, I just need you to know, is like really one of the true American heroes. And he says, Mary, we just have to understand people where they are. I'm like, oh, you're such a better person than me.
Yeah,
So I wrote this
better
book,
than
Stop
me too.
Procrastinating Tomorrow. Oh, so much better. Because I wanted people to just stop doing stupid, like stop wallowing, stop not taking the right action, get moving. So I wrote it during COVID, but people were not ready to hear it during COVID. And I focus grouped it a little bit and people went, we're just not ready. People at large are just not ready for this. So that came out finally in 2024. I had to sit on it for a while. And then my 2025 book is part of the trifecta around succession planning. So there's succession planning for an organization, and then there's how do you level up your next group of leaders without losing people. You know, if the CEO leaves and now the COO is going to take over, well, now the HR guy's upset, the CFO's mad, the sales gal's mad, and they all leave and take their teams with them. Well, how do you prevent that from happening? So this book, the one that came out in 2025, is called You Next, a step-by-step guide to taking charge of your career. But it's for those mid-level folks to make sure their people are ready to take that next level of responsibility, and also make sure people aren't being kept in the dark about what's going on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Also, you forgot to mention you have a PhD in economics. Because
Yes.
you
So
must
it's
have
been a
really
very
been
exciting
bored.
week for me.
Yeah, week. Let me grab my PhD real quick in economics.
So I was very lucky, and just so people have a sense when this airs, the tariff announcement just came out about 5 days ago, and I had to brief World Economics less than 40 hours later to a group of extremely annoyed CEOs in manufacturing. And I had about an hour and a half on this. And I walked in there with a 2-hour presentation, as I always do, and about 200 slides. And Thursdays, the Thursday announcement, I just kept cutting slides, adding slides. And I need you to know I'm not very good at slides. And I warned him in advance. I said, look, you're going to get some truly terrible slides in this presentation, but it's all going to be current and it's going to be the best assessment as well as projection. And this is where a lot of, I think, senior leaders struggle. Economists are great at looking backward. Okay, history is great. I have a couple other degrees in history. Helpful. Great to have that perspective. But what do you do moving forward? You got to be able to predict, like a chess game, what's going to happen next. And then you have to figure out what your response is going to be. If then, if then, if then. And you know this as well as I do. You look at a tough situation and you say, okay, what's the worst that could possibly happen? What is the best that could possibly happen? The real case scenario is probably somewhere in the middle. So if that somewhere in the middle happens, what are you prepared for? What do you need to be prepared for? And then let's make good decisions. One of my CEOs says, well, I'm mad and therefore I'm going to do this. And I looked at him, and this is a group I know pretty well. Like they bring me back every year as the economist. And I looked at him, I go, Bob, you ever make a decision at home when you're mad? How has that worked out for you? And he's like, not good. I'm like, okay. And you don't have millions and millions of dollars at stake. You just have your wife at stake. So let's think about this real hard. Let's not make decisions because we're mad, because we want to be angry, because of an emotional response. Let's make good decisions because they're good strategic decisions.
Yeah, that is the true north. I do the same thing. I have 6 kids. I have to teach them too. We don't make permanent decisions on temporary emotions, things like that. Like when they're 17, they want a tattoo, stuff like that. I'm like, you got to wait a little bit, okay, on that kind of stuff. But you really you gotta rein in those emotions. That's a big thing, that a lot of us in business, I know my first 20 years in my first business, I was running hard, doing great things, but my decisions seemed like they were based on logic. A lot of them were, some weren't, but it could be a challenge. You get in the heat of it trying to get stuff done. Cause I'm probably like you. Being a Marine, we had this thing about time. Okay. And like, early is late and all that. If you're not 15 minutes early, you're 20 minutes late, that whole thing. So I was very much, when I committed to finishing something, it was done on that
Mm-hmm.
time. If it wasn't, look out. Right. So, I
Hmm.
had to develop my own ways to make sure that we got things done with timing and everything else. So, very true. Also, I love you say, and this is something I think a lot of people don't know, Mary, is economics is based on the past. It's based
Hmm.
on data and things that have happened. It's not really a predictor of the future. So, real quick, I'd love just give us that. You combine it with future projection. Okay.
Hmm.
That's really powerful. Like, what is that kind of a snapshot? What does that actually look like?
So you have to look at trends, patterns, and behaviors to predict the future. People say nobody can predict the future. Sure, you can. We're pretty sure when you wake up tomorrow morning, Richard, you're going to get up and brush your teeth because you've done it every single day for the past how many decades. That's a pattern. It's a habit. It's not going to change. Certain things we know because of the past. Other things are absolute wild cards. And you think you can make predictions until the news hits. And then these are what we call external shocks. We have a plan. We know it's going forward. But Muhammad Ali or George Foreman, one of those guys said, a plan is only as good until you get hit in the face and then the plan changes. Or, you have your first altercation with the enemy and then the plan changes. And you have to be able to go to the what happens next. And this is where, when I was a chief of police, I used to tell my young people, what causes people to get hurt badly is what you do in that nanosecond after you get punched in the face. What do you do next? If you're going to fall to the ground and cry, I don't care if you're a girl or a guy or whatever you are, I do not care. But whatever you do in that next second is going to matter how well you come out of this altercation. And if you're going to fall to the ground and cry, instead of being offensive or taking the right move next, that's going to determine your success, and it could be your life. So we need, and as a Marine, you know this, you train for the worst so that you don't have to think when bullets are flying around you. You know that. That's how you practice. You don't practice in the quietude of a shooting range where everything is safe and quiet and nice, and then you go into battle where everything is chaos. You don't do that. You practice for the chaos. And this I think is where military people have an advantage over others. I don't know if you remember, but one time an American admiral was talking to a Russian admiral. This was way back in the 90s. And the Russian admiral asked the American admiral, why does the American Navy do so well in wartime? And the American admiral said, because war is chaos and we practice that on a daily basis. And I think there's a certain element of truth in the situation we've got right now, is that if you are not used to chaos, if you are not used to responding quickly to external shocks in your organization, you are going to really struggle moving forward. And this is before President Trump took office. We knew that technology was accelerating the pace of change. We know that as a global economy and a global world, we are more interconnected than ever. We know we've got to be more responsive faster. How do we do that, and what do we need to do? So yeah, you do look at the patterns and the behaviors. So we look backwards. Here's a nice data point for some of your listeners. In President Trump's first term as president, he imposed 5,000. Only about 2% were kept. Only about 2% went into play. And keep in mind, of the tariffs he imposed, President Biden didn't get rid of any of those. In fact, he increased them. So you have to go back and go, okay, wait, is this totally new? What's actually going on? It's not totally new. And in fact, the latest round of tariffs before what happened last week were done by President Biden as recently as September of 2024. So just keeping that in mind, people go, and yes, was the stock market the last few days, a bloodbath? You bet. I told my group it made the Civil War look like a church picnic. But will we be okay? We will. We just got to figure out what we need to do next.
Yeah, I agree. And I like this insight because I think it's important. You talk about doing things based on emotion. That, those dips in the stock market or a plummet or anything. I've seen it so many, like we've been around a while. Okay. We've seen things go up and down. We lived through Jimmy Carter. Okay. So
Yeah.
yes, I did.
Yeah.
So it's like, we remember things. Okay. The Reagan, I got to serve under Reagan. Yeah. And all that stuff. So it's really good to have that perspective. And I think what always gets me is people don't have this, I don't know if I want to call it awareness/knowledge of the past. They have such short-term memories. They forget or they don't listen. They haven't been, if things are good, they don't pay attention at all. If things are bad, right. They tend to pay attention to the wrong things.
Well, certainly. So just FYI for your folks, nobody cares about calling the economist when the stock market's up and everything is rosy and interest rates are down. And now all of a sudden people are calling me going, what is stagflation and are we in it? Like, no, we're not. Stagflation, by the way, is not the name of your favorite dragon in your latest sci-fi movie. Stagflation is when we have high unemployment. We don't have that. We have very low unemployment. It's where we have high inflation. We don't have that. We have low inflation right now. And it's where we have an economy that is not growing. We actually have a growing economy, so we're not in stagflation. And again, not the name of a dragon, not the name of a dragon. We're not in a recession either. Here's why. A recession means 2 successive quarters of negative GDP in a row. We just finished a quarter. So now everything that happens now, they got like 85 days to fix it. So before the next quarter. And then they got another quarter of bounce there to figure it out. So we need 2 quarters that are negative. So if you're going to make some bad news happen in the economy, they kind of timed it pretty well. Doesn't make it more comfortable. But here's the question I ask people. Okay. So if you knew the stock market was going to take a bit of a dip, what would you do? And they're like, well, we would buy more stock. I'm like, okay, so what are you doing now? And they're like, not buying more stock. I'm like, why? Because we're scared. Okay, so in a year, what will you wish you'd done? In 5 years, what do you wish you'd done? If you love NVIDIA at $140 a share, shouldn't you love it now at 92? I mean, I'm just asking the question. I'm asking the question. It's hard sometimes, though, to get people to take that step in the right direction because many people, as you know, are risk averse and they're not sure what direction to go in.
Yeah, so true. And you see it everywhere. We've been watching it for, literally 5 years. Like what fear has done. I've watched what fear has done to people. I still see them walking around in fear. That's as much as I'm going to say. Okay. It's 5 years later. They're still alive. It's just the whole thing is fear-based and it's perpetuated on the media and stuff like that. So people really have to get that. Like you said earlier, you get punched in the face. What are you going to do? If you look at my face, I've been punched in the face a lot. Okay. I'm a boxer. 7 breaks in my nose, detached from my face, plates and wires. I've got the whole package. I know you're saying you're very pretty for all that, but it's
you
true.
You are very pretty for all that.
Thank you for all that. This used to be a perfect beak. It was perfectly straight at one time. But
Richard, did you know that we all had to box at the Naval Academy? Even the girls, we all had to box.
That's good.
Yeah, we all had to box.
I'd like to hear that.
Because they needed to teach us what it felt like to get punched in the face. And it's a good thing to learn. Apparently you're not supposed to let toddlers do it, but when you're military, you're allowed to do that.
I got to call my wife real quick. Hold on. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was on a security team at church. Okay. And I'm kind of head of it. And it was something I asked because they're all talking. Okay. As people who haven't done security do. And I said, okay, show of hands. Who here has been punched in the face? My hand's up and one other guy, and he happens to be a Marine too. And I'm like, okay. I just want to know where we're starting from. Okay. Don't be telling me all the stuff you're going to do if you've never been punched in the face, So anyways, but it's important to understand like what is next, right? That's the whole win philosophy. What's important now? What do we do now? This second, like how do we react to stuff? And I've done that with my own children. If I've taught them and we do a lot of critical thinking skills and really understanding what's next. How do you react to this stuff? It's always about that. And I think it's incumbent upon us as from a parental standpoint is that we have that attitude. So I live that. So it was kind of easy for me because I have this natural response. Get up, you're okay. And I walk away.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's kind of that, and I'm like, okay, let's go out in the backyard and shoot. It'll make you feel better. We do that kind of stuff.
And it does.
It's good. It does. So it does. I think from the business standpoint, I coach a lot of businesses, right? And I work with them and it's that mindset because most entrepreneurs they're okay with risk. They get it. Calculated risk is business. They get it. But some have not gone deep enough or experienced enough turmoil to really understand like what's the real reaction? Is this going to be over? Am I going to fail? That kind of thing. What are my options? They don't even know how to pick the options because normally in those situations, you've got multiple things you could do and succeed. It's not always just one thing. So again, I think that mindset you're talking about is really important to power through all these dips, all this. Something's always going to be wrong. I think it was Andy Andrews had the best thing. He said, life has 3 stages. You're heading into a crisis, you're in a crisis, or you're heading out of a crisis. Those are the only three stages of life. Like,
And
that's
sometimes
pretty
they
good.
overlap a lot.
A
But
lot.
sometimes they're all overlapping all at the same time. But I think one of the things you said, Richard, is so important to jump into, and that is when people say, well, what if I fail? I'm like, hang on. What does failure even look like?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be able to eat every day? Yeah, you will. Okay. So that's not bad. Will you have a roof over your head? Yeah, you're okay. So that's not bad. Yeah, but people would know that I lost this money, or I lost this job, or we lost this project, or we lost this client. I'm like, okay, but is that failure? I mean, is that actually failure, or is it a setback or a disappointment? As leaders, I think one of the things we have to do is figure out the difference between a real problem, and I mean a real problem, and an inconvenience. And I think you and I probably have a different definition than most people. A problem is somebody's actual life is at stake. I mean, if I screwed up in a day when I was in the Navy, it could cost somebody a life. You too. But for what we do now, it's just money. And any problem that can be, solved with money, is that really a problem, or is it inconvenience? Now, to me, it's just an inconvenience. And this is where strategy comes into play. Because I don't know about your listeners and all that, but once I figured it out, I was like, oh, money. You make that by being good in business. It's not that hard to be good in business. So therefore, by the transitive property, it's easy to make money in business. You just got to do the right things.
Yes. Mary, I say this and people they almost stop the podcast. I go, the easiest thing to do in business is make money. It's the easiest thing to do. It's everything else in business that's hard. The making
That's
money
right.
part's easy, and it's important. And the failure thing, I wrote a whole best-selling book on failure, all mine, all my failures. So it's all learning. And to me, problems, I've defined them as opportunities. So especially if you're talking about money, every problem is an opportunity for a business. You have a problem, whether it's a customer problem, it's a money problem, it's a logistics problem, whatever that is, that's all opportunity. And if people can flip their thinking to that, because if I solve this and I create a system to have this from happening again, that's an opportunity. I'm now more efficient. I have one less drag, right? All that kind of stuff. So I really try to dial that in. So you're exactly right. The failure thing to me, I'm like, if you don't have any, I'll tell you what, if you're worried about what people think about you because you failed, here's how I want you to think about them. They've probably done nothing challenging in their life to even be able to fail. If they're
That's
fail
right.
free, okay, they're living a below average life. And get
That's
away
right.
from those people.
I 100% agree. I want to be around people who try, and we use the word fail, but okay. So I had a book that came out and I thought it was such a great idea. It's called The 5-Minute Leadership Guide. And the idea was, for my people who were it was during COVID, I put this together so that every day you would wake up and go, you would record, what are my leadership challenges today? What skill sets do I need to respond to that? I'm going to have some tough conversations with some tough clients. I might lose a client. I need to make sure that I'm listening. I'm empathetic. I'm all that, it maps these out for you. And every day you map out what you need to do to be successful that day. And then you kind of go back and revisit that at the end of the day, kind of purge your head, let it go, move on to the next day. And I put this together because my folks were just getting all up in their own heads and they were not thinking clear about what they needed to do that day. So I had this great idea. So sure enough, I put together this book, one for a page for every single day of the year, which made it about a 400 and something page book.
Heavy.
You're seeing the problem. My young people looked at this thing and they were like, no, we don't even want to open that. So I was like, okay, was it a failure? Well, it was a learning opportunity. My Generation X and baby boomers loved it. And then they were mad that they got it on the 2nd of January, not the 1st of January, because they wanted to start the first of the year on the first page. I get all that. But you can start anytime. It still works. Like, life doesn't stop and start just based on the calendar year, just FYI for folks. So for my younger people, and I say younger with all love, who were struggling, I called it the 31-day, the 5-minute leadership guide, be better in 31 days. And I made it a paperback. It was thin. Now, instead of being 435 pages, it is 45 pages. And it now seems doable. I made my project in my head and I turned it into what looked like a challenge for other people. I had to simplify what I wanted them to do so that they would do it. And in doing that, I had to change the tool. Now, was it a failure? For some of my friends, they love it. But for those folks, they're like, wow, so wait a second. You've got one big book on Amazon, and then you've got all these other books that can be simply branded for each of your other clients with their logo, their stuff, print on demand. You can ship them a whole new batch with their logo, their website, everything overnight, and it's super cheap. We would call that a win, but it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't gotten
Right.
the feedback of this is a failure.
Well, and you look at 435 pages. You can, and today especially, you load that. You could parse that. Not you. I'm doing the AI you. That you could parse that up into so much content, so many little chapters. I mean, you have stuff to deliver forever with that, and you did the 45-page book. And don't forget the third thing. It can be a great doorstop to keep the door from closing. You got that too.
I'm really
see?
hoping that there's a movement of people out there. So if y'all are listening, you're part of this movement out there, and you would very much like to protest productivity, time management, good leadership, and you want to burn books in protest, please consider burning mine. I will sell them to you at a significant discount, like 40%. Just buy the books. And then if you want to light them on fire and film it, good on you. I don't really care. As long as you're buying the
But we
books, I
want
don't really care
video.
what you're doing.
We want
Yeah,
video.
I want
Though.
video. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm good with
we
it.
got to see the cover.
Yeah.
Before it burns.
Yeah,
And then
well, I
after,
see the cover. You're protesting productivity. We're burning Mary's books on productivity.
That's right. I love it. I love it. And that is magnificent. The idea of, let's talk a bit about writing and doing the books. I've written a couple now. I used to think I was prolific until I started meeting writers. They wrote something like, oh, I'm a slacker. Okay. But I'm just, it's okay. I'm just going to do my thing and, write other little things and stuff and make some videos. But I love the aspect of you're in 20 plus books now. That kind of, so we're going to jump into productivity here for a moment. Okay. So, and people think it's like, I told them Escape the Owner Person. That was my book. I wrote it in like 3 weeks. Okay. And then my editor's trying to keep up. I'm like sending her a chapter like every day or two, like get this done. She's like, wow, that's really fast. And people are like, that's so fast. You're so lucky. I'm like, well, it was kind of in me. The story was in me, kind of what I wanted to do. And I knocked this thing out. It was really good. And this is how you might have an appreciation for this. So what I actually did was all my editor, she was amazing. Like I have a high value in editors. She wouldn't like rewrite your stuff. She like move a word. And she'd move it in a sentence, or she'd put a comma in. She really liked commas. She'd put in a comma and stuff here and there, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm writing this and send it to her. I printed all her corrections so I could see it. Oh, look, only one red mark on the whole page. Look at this. So I'm like counting all. That's how odd I am, But the idea of getting that book done, getting it out there, getting the cover shot, right, doing the whole thing. I mean, it took me longer to create the title than it did to write the whole book. Right. Very hard. I had 27 working titles. I went with the 20. Okay. So it was like this thing to get that. And I'm like all excited and I get bestseller and do all that stuff. And then I talk to my friends and they're on their 7th book and this guy's on his 20th and you've done 20. I'm like, But then I realize it's okay because I don't think I want to write that many books. I've decided I'm going to do other stuff. So talk about just that. Talk about your drive to write the books.
So I thought when I was like 3 that I was going to write books when I was an adult. So this has always been there. I could read very early on. I read financial news when I was, I would read the Wall Street Journal at 5, which my parents thought was adorable, but I thought it was very interesting because the stories were actually real life, which it was irritating to me about the kids' books because it was all made up stuff. And I was very irritated. I was like, why are you teaching children lies? I'm a very hard-nosed little 5-year-old, a little pigtails, little freckles, very indignant. I know, hard to imagine. And so I was fascinated by the fact that the Wall Street Journal had real stories of real businesses and real people doing real things. And I thought that was much better than the cartoon stuff that they were feeding children. So I knew I was going to write books. It took me 8 years to get my first real book done. I did a couple compendiums with other people. There are a few of us who wrote leadership books for the Naval Academy, which means 1,000 midshipmen every year are going to buy a book they will never read in all likelihood. Right. That all is owned by the Navy, and it should be. That's how that worked. They said, hey, we need you to write, certain chapters. Okay, so we all did that. And then when I started to do my own work, here's what inspired me in a way that you would not think it would be inspired. Some of your folks are trained in academia. Some of your folks are thinking, I cannot write a book. It just seems very daunting. I need to just throw that out of your head because I was in academia for a long, long time. I taught college at the university level, 10 years at the Air Force Academy, 4 years at the Naval Academy. And then I taught for Hawaii Pacific University and in the graduate school of CSU. And so I have decades of teaching time, some of that overlapped with some of my business time. And I was in academia one time and I'm listening to someone berate a historian for writing history as historical novels. And they were like, this dilutes the story of the history. And I said, wow, we're actually criticizing somebody for writing history in a way that people want to read. Why are we doing that? Why are we tearing down somebody else? Because your stuff, your dissertation, your dissertation committee and your mama read that, and that's it. And instead, these other people are writing stuff that people are buying because they want to, not because they have to. What if we wrote books that people wanted to read instead of they have to read? And as I said those words, my buddy next to me goes, did you hear what you just said? I go, yeah. He goes, what are you going to do? I go, now I got to write the stupid book. So then it changed how I looked at writing and reading and all of that. So a few truisms. First, the book is never going to be ultimately finished. It's never going to be finished. There's always more work you can do on a book. Just letting y'all know, never finished. My solution to that is I create a book website so that when I get another idea for another chapter or a white paper or a new project or a workbook or a facilitator guide or an exercise, I have a place to put it. So my brain is still working on the book even when the book is printed and being sold as a book. There's always updates. So that's number one. The book is never finished, but that's okay. You can always add to it. Number two, most people don't realize you can write a book in 90 days. If you write 15 minutes a day, that is 2 pages. If you dictate for 15 minutes a day, that's 2 pages. 2 pages times 90 is 180 pages. How long is a normal book? About 180 pages. Now, you're going to have to go through the editing phase. I agree with you, Richard. A good editor worth their weight in gold and platinum and donuts all at the same time. So yes, I love a good editor. I have worked as an editor. I do not pretend to edit my own stuff. I always get somebody else to do it. That is critical because what you think is clear is not. This is like you going home and have a conversation with your spouse. You're totally clear on what has to happen in that conversation. They have no idea what you're talking about. And now you have a disconnect. Yeah, so don't do it. Get a good editor. Number 3. Oh, no, I'm on number 4. Number 4, stop procrastinating on writing the book. Sit your butt down and do it. Stephen Pressfield, who is also a Marine, who wrote, The Last of the Amazons. He wrote The Gates of Fire that the movie The 300 was based on. He wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance. He also wrote The Art of War, the War of Art. The war of art is you have to figure out what it is you're put on the planet to do, and then you pursue that relentlessly against all obstacles, which he calls the resistance, which are all the people who tell you you can't, all the people who say you don't have enough time, all the people who throw all those excuses in your path. Now, keep in mind, our brain loves excuses. You know why? Because our brain loves to be lazy. Our brain will say, you know what? You really did have a hard day. You deserve to go in and pour that glass of wine and sit on the couch. Your brain will always tell you to go in and sit on the couch because it's easy. Your brain loves easy. Given the path of least resistance, your brain will take it every single time. What your brain does not like is before you have that glass of wine, you're going to accomplish these 10 things, or no wine for you, no soup for you today. Your brain doesn't like that. It's like, fine. But once the habenula, that part of your brain that manages change, makes that decision, now you're good. But see, most people don't make the decision. And without the decision, you don't have the commitment. And this is where I see people falter. So people say, I really want to write a book. I'm like, what's stopping you? Oh, there's a whole list. If you let that list stop you, if you allow that list to stop you, it's always going to stop you. It's like having kids. Is there ever a good time to have kids? No, there's never a good time to have kids. You're always going to be busy. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough space. You're never going to have the right dog. I mean, there's always a reason. But if you want it and you decide to do it, then you make it happen.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I'll just say amen to that because that is what it's about. I talk to people talk about they got a lot of anxiety. And I said, I'm going to tell you why you have anxiety. It's going to go right along with what you said because you have an inability to make a decision. If you made a decision, the anxiety goes away. Doesn't matter if it's a right decision or wrong. You made a decision. And then, oh, okay, you're going to do it or not do it. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to go that way. Once you make that decision and take the steps, like you're saying, all that stuff goes away. And then you move towards the goal, towards the outcome, right? That's what we have to do. And people, like I said, I make decisions pretty quickly, and change my mind slowly. It's a pattern of success, because you get it, you understand it, and you move towards it. And I think it's a pattern of success, Murray. Tell me if you kind of agree with this, is because we committed, and anything that might get in the way to that decision, we plow through. And that's why it's successful. Okay, because there's going to be obstacles, but we plow through them, right?
So the decision is the key. And I just want to go back to that for a second, because when people are thinking about making a big decision, do I buy the company? Do I sell the company? Do I get a divorce? Do I whatever? Thinking about getting a divorce, I've never been divorced, I don't actually know, but thinking about getting a divorce is a terrible place for your brain to be, because you've started over this bridge and now you're in the bridge of indecision and you are swaying between the two sides of the cliff. Okay, hang on. When we think about jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, which maybe you have done, I think it's a stupid idea for anybody to do it. My Marine Corps husband did this a lot, and I thought it was stupid when he did it too. But when you think about it, the night before, you're nervous, as you should be, because it's a stupid thing to do. And then you wake up that morning, they're like, breakfast? You're like, no breakfast. I'm good. Coffee's fine. That might come up too. Bad idea. And then you drive out to the airfield and they give you all the gear and you're going, this little strap is going to save my life. This is a bad idea. And then they give you the safety briefing, which, you're not listening to anyway, because your stomach is sick and your heart's pounding through your chest and your hands are all sweaty. And they're like, grab this thing. And you're like, I can't grab anything. And you just feel terrible. And then you get in the plane, you look out and go, oh God, I'm not actually going to be here when this plane lands. And your stomach is really excited now. And if you're in the Marine Corps or the Navy or the Army or the Air Force, we're going to help you out of that plane. And there's some drill sergeant with a big boot that's going to push you out of that plane, and they're going to make sure that you get out of that plane. Okay, we have encouragement in ways other people do not. So you're all nervous. You're in this place of trepidation and anxiety and angst because you don't know if you can take that step. But what happens is as soon as you get out of that plane, the decision's been made. All of a sudden, guess what? Your heart rate falls. Your blood pressure falls. Your hands no longer sweaty. And now you can look around and enjoy the ride because the decision's been made. There's not a thing you can do about it except go with that decision. So when I tell people we're all in this place of upheaval and all that, I'm like, how would you feel if the decision was made? And when I do my coaching, I know a lot of coaches and consultants, they do that whole Socratic method thing. Yeah, I don't do that. I'm like, look, I can tell you, if you need a year of me asking you questions so you get to the right decision on your own, I'm happy to take your money and do that, but that's not real efficient for either one of us. So if you just want me to tell you what to do here, I'm real happy to provide that. And because when you're the outsider, it's so easy to just go, yeah. You want to get here? Go here. Do this. Take this step and then this one and then this one. And let me map this out for you. It is clear as day in my head. And I go, but if you want a year of therapy, you're welcome to hire somebody who's going to do that. It's just not going to be me because I can see where you need to go. Let's make the decision. Let's make good, strategic, strong decisions. And then let's move forward. But I also caution people, a strong decision today is going to be tough. A strong decision today makes things easier in the future. An easy decision today oftentimes makes things really tough in the future.
Yeah, very true. I tell people, I boxed for a long time and there's 4 steps to go up to the ring. Okay, you got to walk these friends, go through the ropes, and every day. So I sparred 6 days a week. Okay, I'm going to be a champion. I'm going to work every day. I train. I run in the morning. I do doubles every day. But that 4 sticks, you get to, you warm up, and then you got to spar. And I'm sparring pros, and I'm sparring champion. I'm like, every day, I'm like, those 4 steps, like hated it every day. Got through the ropes, stood in the corner, ding, everything's good. Game on. We throw down for 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds. Everything's good. Have a good time. Get out, do another 10 rounds on the bags and everything. Go home.
Because you made the decision. Like before the ding, you could always stop. You could turn around. You could take a knee. Right. You could walk back out. As soon as the ding happens, decision's been made.
That's it. And as I tell people, I go, but every day I had to do the 4 steps. That was my commitment. As soon as I could go through the ropes, get on the inside of the ring.
That's right.
And the bar, good to go. And it just never went away. There's never a day I ran up there waiting for someone, and there's days that there's a lot of days I got beat up pretty bad, days I got to do the beating, right? But that's all part of making a decision. You're going to go through the process no matter what. And I got better and better and better. And that's the whole goal, right? The other thing you talk about, the jumping out of a plane, my son being in the Marine Corps, he's at SOI in Pendleton, so School of Infantry, and they got like the weekend off. So what does he do? Goes up and jumps out of
a perfectly good plane.
He's sending me pictures. He's like, this is awesome. It's just like, just loving it, you know? So it's just, my dad did it at like 74, jumped out of his first plane.
That's amazing.
So I'm like this, we're an odd family.
It's awesome. But it's taken the step. And a lot of people were taught, and then it was reinforced over COVID to be risk averse. And this is where I'm really struggling with a lot of my leaders right now, because they learned if I'm risk averse, I keep my job. If I don't make hard decisions, if I just make lukewarm baby decisions every day, we can keep going. We're not being strategic. We're being maybe a little tactical, but not really. We're being lazy. We're mostly keeping status quo, and I'm keeping my job. And that's, to me, that is a business of desperation.
Well, it's a 100% defensive position. There's no offense in that kind of existence. And you can only stay in defense for so long. We're not meant to, defense is a temporary, very temporary place. You know, so when like you're saying, I don't know, let's talk about are you pulling them out of that? Are you having any progress pulling them out of that mindset? What does that look like for you?
I am.
Plus 5 years
I am.
here.
Yeah, the folks I get to work with they tend to be people who want to take that step forward, but they're looking around and they're not seeing their peers do it. And then sometimes they're not seeing their bosses do it. And so they don't know there are people out there doing it. You just got to be one of them. And then you will attract those people to you. So what I do when I work with them is we go, oh, well, I have a 5-minute. First off, I should tell you, my life lives by checklists, systems, and things that I can replicate. In the military, we do everything by a checklist. When I got into business, I needed a system, a process for my coaching clients, so I wrote the thing. I have 100 of these 5-minute solutions, my 5-minute plans. And they're 5-minute plans on things that are affecting people on a day-to-day basis. So and every 5-minute plan is one piece of paper, a 5-minute vision plan, business growth, productivity, focus, conflict, just 100 things that are challenges to lots of people. Somebody put them together, collected them, put them all together in a book called Better in 52 Weeks. Yay. Great. And that's awesome. The idea is you work on one of those plans every week, and that's going to work things better, which also gives your one-on-one people something to talk about with their teams every week, which is good. But these 5-minute plans, what I do is we work through the 5-minute growth plan. And the idea there is to ask questions. Yes, no, maybes. Are you doing this? This is a thing. This is a thing. This is a thing. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. And then you take all your no's. Not everybody has some no's. And you take all your no's and you circle the top 3 that if you worked on those for the next 12 months, what would make you the most profit? Not just revenue, but profit, if that's what you're going for. What would give you the most growth? What would give you the most whatever? And you focus on those things. And from there, then each one of those gets its own 5-minute goals plan. So we strategize on what are the obstacles, because it's like anything. If you don't strategize on the obstacles, your brain's going to focus on the obstacles. So you go, okay, here's the obstacles, but then here are the solutions, because your brain has to have that place to go. It has to figure out, oh yeah, we thought about this and this is what we do. Because again, your brain's going to take you to sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. It's going to focus on, why you can't do it. So you got to focus on the solutions so that you're not held back by the obstacles. So let's take a personal thing. Let's say you want to lose 10 pounds, but this is me. You're always on the road. You're always traveling. Your food choices are seldom your own when you're on the road. And sometimes you get to that Holiday Inn and it's midnight and Cheetos are the healthiest thing on the menu. I'm just saying these things happen. Okay, you can use travel as an excuse for not being in shape, not staying in shape, not eating right, because there's plenty of excuses. Or you can go, look, so here's what I have to do. I have to carry a bag of carrots. I have to drink water before I drink wine. I have to do 1 push-up a day. It might lead to another one. It might not, but 1 push-up a day. So all those obstacles that get in my head, I don't have time. I get in late. There's not healthy. All right. There's always a solution. So figure out the solutions, again, for your top 3 business goals. It's going to make you the most revenue. And from those, that's what you work towards. And that becomes the goals that you map out every single month, your top 5 goals. And then you share those top 5 goals with your teams. And then they craft their top 5 goals for the month based on your top 5 goals for the month. And now magic happens when everybody's in alignment with where we're going. See, a lot of times what happens is the people at the top have this idea of where they're going and they go, we're going to go there. And everybody goes, sounds good. But nobody knows how we're getting there. And nobody knows what they're thinking. And then 6 months later, we're like, well, we're moving along on those goals. Are we? I haven't seen any shift or change. I'm not sure what's going on. And this is one of the things that employees say they wish their bosses would do. And that's to talk to them more about what's important instead of the day-to-day nitnoid junk that most of us get. Most people do not get good information from their leadership. Most people do not have a good idea from their immediate supervisors what it is they need to do to be successful for their boss's goals because they don't know what they are. Simple communication and a system that puts it in place, magic.
Yeah, and I love what you've done because the big thing with my clients is they want to do their goals and their goals tend to be 1 year, 2 year, 5. I'm like, how about 30 days? What you just did was 30 days. They're accomplishing all this stuff in 30 days and another 30 days, another thing. It compounds and you win. The thing I teach always, especially in system building, you'll appreciate this, is who's ever on my team has to know what it looks like to succeed on the day, the week, the month, the quarter, and the year. If they don't know what success looks like in all those places, they're going to leave. Okay. Or they're going to do nothing. They're just going to be a drain. Okay. I don't want drains. I want fountains, right? I want people who are doing good things. So it's so important that success is defined very, very clearly in like the day. Like if I can go somewhere and know how to succeed every day, I'll probably succeed every day. And you know what else I'll probably do? Be happy. I might want to come back tomorrow and do this again because I get to win every day because I know how. You know, I've been told how to do it and I'll get the feedback. I'm doing great and I know how to win and that kind of stuff. So it's a great topic, but that 30-day, I do 30, 60, 90-day when it comes to goals and targets. Like I never get past that. We'll do a strategic vision for 18 to 24 months out of things we're going to achieve. But that's company wide. That's the full thing. So a little bit different, but still even that's 18 to 24 months for like strategic vision, like big change. And we do it again. You know, so we don't do the 5 year because we all know in business, 5 years is like you never get there. Everything changes. It's like the battle plan. It never survives the first shot. It's the same thing.
So I'm going to agree with you, except on succession planning, because right now that is a 5-year plan. Everybody's got to have a what if plan for succession that has to go out 5 years, because what happens, and you and I both know this, things happen. Sometimes, you know, a lot of people in their 50s and 60s say, I intend to work until this amount of time. The average person who's in their 50s says that they intend to stay working until they're 67. Why? Because that's when their Social Security starts to hit, and that's the number they have in their head. Well, hang on. Are we making it to that age? Let me ask you. So back in 1991, which I realize was a long time for both of us, what do you think the average age was of the average American who retired back in 1991? Fun question.
61?
There's no wrong answer. What?
Yeah, 61? 61 or 62,
That's
right?
a good guess. The answer is 57. 57. So what do you think the average age was for somebody who retired in 2024?
55. No, 70.
Right, see, I know,
It's like
right?
70.
So this
it's
is
like,
confusing.
it's longer. Yeah, right. Oh.
Yeah, because 70 is the new 60. The answer is 62. And they intended to work longer, but either their health or their health of a spouse got in the way, or there was a family situation, emergency with a child that caused them to have to leave that job early, or they found a better offer. One of those 3 things, almost always a health issue, is the most predominant thing for senior people. So people thought they were going to work longer, but now they're not. So it's 3 problems. First, now you're 62 years old, you don't have health care. You're 62 years old, you thought you were going to have 5 more earning years that now you don't have. And number 3, your organization thought you were going to be around for 5 more years, so there's nobody to take your place. So that 5 years, I agree with you, for most strategic planning, you don't look out 5 years, except when it comes time to your key leadership. And there you got to have a plan.
Now, we are aligned, and I'm going to explain why. So I call it exit
Yes.
strategy. Okay. So
Yes.
we pick a time, right? And we work our way backwards. Where we want to go, how long, how much, all that stuff. But the beauty why we do that is when that situation you described comes up, your business is built to sell. Your business is built to be systemized and running itself. So I'm totally aligned with you on that because that's the critical aspect because you can't predict that stuff. I did not want to on purpose lose everything in 0809. That wasn't my plan. I had no intention of losing my business, my home. I've got 6 little kids. That was never my plan. Okay. I was doing really good until I wasn't. And then there's no more
Yeah.
plan. Okay. Then it's start from scratch, got to relocate, do the whole thing. So I'm a big fan of teaching the exit strategy, the same principles, right? Put all this stuff in place. You may never want to sell. You may work till you're dead. I get it. That's all good. Probably not going to happen. More likely than not, you're not going to make it to those end points, right? So we want to prepare to be able to maximize our exit, I'm air quoting, whenever that is, right? By doing the
Right.
right things in the beginning and start with that end in mind. So yeah, totally with you on that. 100%. Good
I
stuff.
think this is the next big business crisis in America is a lack of succession planning. In I'd love to say just especially in my small, medium to sized businesses, but I'm seeing it everywhere. And I do view this as a critical problem because people are so reactionary that succession planning sounds like a nice to do thing instead of a, wow, we really got to get this done thing. Because there's not urgency until somebody dies or gets hit by a truck or retires or suddenly retires or gets poached. Yeah, about 2 years ago, I got hit by a truck, which is awesome. My older brother, the other Marine in my life, was driving. Yeah, yeah. He was driving his wife's Porsche. That created some problems. And he made a left-hand turn and a truck plowed into the passenger side and I kind of got pinned. Of course, the roof was down, and all that, a little two-seater Porsche. By the way, if you're a motivational speaker and you get hit by a truck, I'm just telling you, Richard, it's like the best thing ever. Because
Oh,
now
I'm
you can
telling you.
always
Yeah.
say, what if you get hit by a truck? Here's exhibit
Right.
A. I got hit by a
Yeah,
truck.
right.
So yeah, bones poking out everywhere, all these things. And people were like, well, did you lose business? I said, no. And they're like, why? I said, I sent a text to my assistant with my arm that was not broken with bones poking out of it. And I was like, please cancel my appointments for today, reschedule for Monday. And, cause I was like, this is Home Depot stuff. I'll be able to, talk and all that by Monday. And, this is the benefit of having a great team. I didn't tell
That's
her
right.
why. I was like, reschedule everything till Monday. This happened on a Thursday. And by Monday, I had a punctured lung, but I could talk on the phone and I could serve my clients and all that. And you kind of go, okay, so what's the best that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? And you got to plan for these things. And that means having backups. And everybody
Yep.
says, I'm the only one who can run my company. I'm the only one who can do this. I'm the only one. Okay, you and I have all been in those situations in the military where, yeah, we were the only one who knew what we did in that moment, did that thing, and yet we left and the team was just fine. So
Yes. The military is still operating without us. Okay. So it's just,
not well. Let's
how
be
did
clear,
they do
not
it?
well.
Yes, yes,
I know,
but
not well.
I
Yeah,
feel bad, but I had to go.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm with you, and I think what I tell people, when it comes down like the exit strategy, my term for that is there's two times to do it. The first time is before you launch your business. The second time
Yes,
is right now. Right now
yes,
is the second time. Like you could stop today and figure this out. We just start with
100%.
when and how much. When do I want to be
Mm-hmm.
done? How much do I want? And then we reverse
Exactly.
engineer that and it becomes our business filter. I always tell them, so now when happy little opportunities come flirting by, you can go, hold on, let me run this through. Does this get me closer to my exit or further? If it detracts from it, it's a
Good one.
hard no. If it's getting me closer, bring it on. Let's go. I want to get to my exit. I want to get to where I want to go. So I developed it to be that. So people can
I
take the
like that.
emotion, like we talked about in the beginning, take that out of it. Because everything looks, especially if you're doing well in your business, people come and they just kind of float those little opportunities in front of you because they want your money and you think you're going to make more money. It's just a distraction 9 out of 10 times. If that spoke isn't coming back to the exact hub of the main thing, and driving you towards that exit, we say no. That's a discipline you have to instill, but it's super effective.
Yeah, I call it the chaff of business. It's chaff. It's
Throw it in the
confusion.
wind, baby. It's gone.
It's thrown in the, you know, it's chaff. I make an acronym out of everything. And so chaff is one of the acronyms I use all the time. And it's the stuff that gets in the way of our focus.
Yep. That's it.
Yep.
I see it with entrepreneurs all the time, especially first 2 to 5 year people. They've got this, they have the energy, and I call it ignorance on fire. Okay. They're keyed
Oh, I
up.
love
They
that.
don't really know what they're doing, but they're going so fast and hard, they're getting things done. And I love it. To me, that's one of those things where like, you need that. I tell them if I'm talking to startups, like, you need ignorance on fire. You're all here because you got that. Like, you don't know all the answers, not going to know all the answers, but you're going to get stuff done. And that's what matters. You'll make progress. You'll lose a little money. You're going to make some bad decisions, but keep going. Back to that whole, we don't worry about the obstacles. We keep going. And you get to that, you kind of instill that in them. And then we fine tune that. Now you start
Yes.
learning. Now you bring on a coach, the outside eyes. They're going to say, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you might not want to do that because these 3 things are going to happen. And you're not
Yes.
going to like any of those 3. Okay. That's what I do for people. That's what
Richard,
you do for people. Yeah.
I love that as a new book title for you, Ignorance on Fire.
You know what?
I'm
I don't have
I'm
to
just
write it
saying
down.
I
I've
really
had
love
many
that.
years. I like it. I do like it.
I really
There's
like
going to be
that.
some
I
cool
really
cover
like
art with that too. There could be some
Yeah,
really cool
Ignorance
cover art
on
with
Fire.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Fun.
Yep.
It's what, but you know, those things that you see, you know, when you're around enough businesses and you see, because I wrote my book because I saw patterns. I saw all the businesses doing the same wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, that I can fix that. I got to just fix it once and then go help the next
Mm-hmm.
guy. They all got the same broken
Mm-hmm.
thing, you know? So, or what I heard the other day, oh, they're doing all the wrong things. I love
Mm-hmm.
that saying too. They're doing all the wrong things for me to come and fix. So but
the other thing,
it's how,
it was a phrase I got a book that I'm playing with the title called Perfectly Wrong, that you can do a lot of things right, but the outcome can still be perfectly wrong. So if you're not putting it all together in the right way, if it's not targeted in the right way, if it's not focused in the right way, there's a lot of wasted energy. It's all perfectly right, but in the end, it's perfectly wrong.
that's it. That's it. You know, it's connecting dots.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got all the right pieces, but again, you got to put them together right? We have to understand how the machine, what's the outcome of the machine? What's it actually supposed to produce when I put it together? What is my vision for what it's going to look like? And then will that happen? You know, too many times people are building things and driving their business and they're focused on gross revenue. Okay. And that's a really bad scorecard. Okay. And that's why I want to get into this. I'm focused on profit. You know the great saying, right? Revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. All right.
That's right.
I'm all about profit because I did the revenue thing. Okay. It did not serve me very well at all. Okay. So really bad. So I think people, once you understand that, it's really about what you keep, you know, and there's so much profit in a business that's left on the table. That's what I do. I help recover lost profits they didn't even know were missing. Right? You go in, they're like, oh, what's this? Oh, well, that's $100,000 you were going to let someone else have. Okay. So there you go. Hey, have a nice day. You know, we want to show them that stuff. So I know a profit's a big thing that you do as well. So I'd love to talk about that a bit. Give me some views. Give me some insight. And this is going to sound dumb, but the importance of profit. I like other people to say it too, because so many people just really, I don't know, they're really focused on, hey, I did 10 million this year. Hey, I did 3 million. I hit the 7-figure mark. And like, who cares? You took
What
home
you
like
keep.
$60,000.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you did $1 million. What are you doing? So
Right.
talk about that a little bit.
So what I have found many entrepreneurs missed somewhere along the line was the concept of total cost, total revenue, and break-even points. So look, you start out your business, you've got fixed costs. I get that. So your fixed cost, it's above zero. And your variable costs are going to be on top of that. Okay, that's going to be above zero. You add those together, that's your total cost. That's a line. So you're not starting at zero. You're starting above the zero line of your cost line. Well, now you've got to sell stuff. So you are starting at zero. So here's your cost lines up here, your zero part's down here, and this has to be going in the right direction. Well, hang on. So there's a point in time where your costs finally equal what you're making. And that's a good day. That's a break even point. Now you still haven't made any money, but you stopped losing. That's when the bleeding stopped. Officially, the bleeding
Right.
stopped there. So I color that in red. And then I'm like, okay, but you're still not eating anything besides peanut butter. So now we got to get your total revenue line way above that total cost line. And that's where you want to be fat. And I do this sometimes with women's groups. I go, how many of us want to be fat? Nobody raises their hand. I'm like, we all want to be really fat. We want to be fat right here. Fat is this profit symbol that is between our total revenue line and our total cost line. This is fat. And this is where the quantity on the bottom of that tends to be a problem, because as people push out their quantity, sometimes they don't realize that they're expanding beyond their second break-even point. So you see this all the time with restaurants. You'll see a really great restaurant. It's a hole in the wall. It's always crowded. Everybody knows each other. It's packed all the time. They decide they're going to buy the space next to them and expand. Well, as soon as they do that, now they've got double the inventory, double the space. They've got to hire more staff. They've got to hire more people. It's not just doubling the amount of salary, it's tripling the amount of salary, because now if two people don't show up one day, you've got a crisis on your hands. And now you're catering, and now you're doing all these other things. So because of that, you got to raise your prices. You raise your prices. All of a sudden you've lost your loyal customer base that made you popular. And 3 years later, you have no restaurant, because you didn't understand your market. You didn't understand what it would look like to expand beyond that second break-even point. And so when I map this out on a whiteboard with black lines and red coloring and green coloring and this fat big profit sign that looks like a pie symbol, people go, I'm like, so, your friends can say they made 10 million, but they expanded beyond that second break-even point, which means they're still eating peanut butter. And when you're making $10 million and you're still eating peanut butter, that's a bad day.
Yeah, it's, I was explaining to somebody the other day, I go, there's growth and there's scale. Growth costs a lot of money. You just described growth, right?
Yeah.
Scale,
Yeah.
it's duplication, it's, system, it's all that stuff. So there's definitely a difference there. And I love that you mentioned that, because it's just like discounting. I tell people this a lot. Okay, we got COGS, cost of goods sold, $70. I'm selling a thing for $100. I make $30. Oh, let's sell more. Let's do a 10% discount. Now I'll sell it for 90.
Right.
Still cost me 70. Now I've lost that $10. Now I have to do over 33% just to equal my old profit margin. So I had to sell more product just to get back to where I was before I offered a 10% discount, which no one only offers 10%. And people's buying decision isn't influenced until you hit 40%. Think about that.
That's true.
Okay.
That's
right?
true.
So this discounting thing, I'm a big anti-discounter. Okay. I'm like, we don't do that. What we do is we offer more value, and we bundle and we package stuff, and we sell more, and we do that, and we increase our profit, very, very simply, So yeah, there's equations for customer loss. What do you think you're actually going to lose when you raise the prices, and all that good stuff? So it's cost cutting. There's raising prices. There's all kind. We have about 50 different profit centers we hit when I go into a business to really build up the important line, really get that profit in there. So I love what you're saying, because it's interesting. Again, it might even go back to ignorance on fire. Okay. They're stuck in chasing the revenue. They're not understanding the simple thing that you just described with the restaurant. Okay. Doubling isn't just doubling. It's important. It's not, it's just exactly. And people just, what I have found, and this is a dig, because I spent 20 years in this same realm, we didn't know our numbers. I just would ask, how much more do we need? And I go make it. Oh, you need 10 grand? I'll get that tomorrow. And I go out and make more money, and I'll make more money. And I kept getting more money, like whatever I wanted, because no one could do what I do, and I could charge what I wanted to charge, and I world-class this and that. But I never thought about what I was doing with it. I just kept making more. I mean, Mary, I operated at a level of stupid that's hard to surpass. I'm telling you, it's like, you have a long conversation with my wife. She'll tell you about that, right? I'm telling you, it was like, I look back and I'm like, man, I am just grateful to be here. All the stupid stuff I did, but now it's about helping others avoid that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's good stuff. Any final words on profit?
Profit is good.
We could probably spend an hour.
We could probably spend an hour.
Yes. Profit is very good.
Profit is good.
And why is profit good? Tell us why profit is good.
If you're in business and you're not making a profit, you have a hobby, not a business. That is not sustainable. If you have a profitable business, it means that you are offering the goods and services people need at a fair price. And it means that you can then pay your employees and yourself well. When you can pay yourself well and help your community because you are now a thriving member of your community, guess what? Now you sponsor the Little League teams. You show up at the business networks. You're part of the chamber. You become an integral part of lift other people's boats as well. When you are successful, which is profitable, when you are successful, now you are blessed to help other people. And I think to whom much is given, much is expected, but you got to work your butt off along the way. And once you become that and you become successful and you help your employees be successful too, by helping them reach their full potential, by developing them professionally, by making them feel valued, respected, and listened to in the workplace, see, that to me is success. But none of it happens if you're running a business that's going into the ground.
So Mary just described everything I do in like 45 seconds. Profit, freedom, and impact. That's what we're looking to do. And you got to start with the profit because that's going to give you the freedom. And like you said, then you can make the impact. So we're just 100% aligned on that. And it's really people, it's not a dirty word, all that kind of stuff. Profit is what you should be focused on. Look at those P&Ls every week. Understand what they are, how they're affected, and everything else. So it's so good. I love hearing other people say it. Because then I'm just not the only one. Yeah. It was kind of selfish of me, but I want
No, it allows us to do good things. Because when you're making good profit, you're not operating the rest of your life from a sense of scarcity. And then when people need help and they ask you for help, I'm really involved in animals and rescues and all that. I had the equestrian team at the Air Force Academy for 10 years and all that. So occasionally, somebody will come and go, we've got this horse and we can't pay the vet bill. I'm like, yeah, here's a credit card. If you're not running a profitable business, you can't do that.
That's right.
Somebody says, hey, we want to sponsor this school in Nepal. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I want to do this. You then become equipped to do the good things on the planet. You can help other people. If you're worried every single day about whether or not you can pay your rent, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. So this is why we have to be successful. And that starts with being profitable.
Yeah, 100%. That is so good. You ask anyone, should they be, they'll say yes. No one wants to be not profitable or be in lack, right? But it's really what can you do with it? That's what it comes down to. It's all about your choices about what you're going to do with it, who it's going to serve. And like you said, I'll just reiterate, your people on your team. I always tell them, hey, I can make them more competent. That's the easy part of business. I can send them to a class and get them certified. I can build a competency. But how do we make them better people? Because if I can make them better people, and I want to help 10,000 business owners create the profit, freedom, impact, if they make their people better people, where do they go? Home to their families. Their families are now in the communities. Now we're affecting millions of people. Okay, because we're focused on that because we have the time and the freedom to do that. We have the profit to do that, right? So it's way bigger than people think. People, I think they kind of put money at this kind of low, dirty level kind of thing because they don't understand its usefulness. All they think about is someone who's greedy. It's kind of odd, right?
Well, I think most people have an emotional relationship with money, and I don't. Money is a tool. Money is a tool you need if you don't die tomorrow. Said that in Wall Street. And that's true. It's just a tool to help other people, and it's just a tool. I don't get emotional about money, partly because I'm a trained economist and, you just don't. But also I don't get emotional I get excited, I get passionate, but that's not the same as being emotional. You don't make good decisions based on emotion. You can get into your business because you have a high degree of passion and you love what you get to do. And hopefully everybody here does all of that. And I hope you do. But if you're making decisions based on emotion and you're treating money like it's in constant scarcity, that's an unhealthy relationship with a tool.
Right. I agree 100%. That is, it's a good one. It is what it is. I mean, it is, to me, that's the truth. It's, if you can treat it as a tool, business is a tool. Your whole business is a tool. I mean, that's why, again, the freedom part where I wrote Escape the Owner Prison because everyone was trapped by their business. I tell them, I say, listen, this business that's kind of a mess that you're not running properly is a mistress. It pulls you away from your family every waking moment, every sleeping moment. It wants you. It wants your attention, but you're not doing anything to fix that. So once we fix that, then the freedom can come. Then you can start making all your kids' games, going to your kids' recitals, taking your spouse out for that date night, because that's why you got in business in the first place, was to be able to do all those things. And it's been 10 years and you don't do any of those things. So we fix it, because we're going to focus on profit and systems and processes. And it's amazing. And I love it. Okay. This has been amazing. This has been awesome. And I appreciate you so much coming on and sharing. And I'm telling everybody, we got to maybe half her bio. Okay. She's got stuff on the bio we didn't even talk about. Maybe we'll do episode 2 and share the rest of this woman's accomplishments. They're unbelievable. But how do people follow you, get in touch, get one of your 70,000 books you've written or whatever, and give them some place to go?
Productiveleaders.com. Productiveleaders.com/free has all kinds of really great free business resources that I'm happy if your folks take a look at, download. There's no weird sign in. It's just all there. The books are listed on that website too. If you go to Amazon, it's Mary C. Kelly. There's a lot of Mary Kellys out there. Jack the Ripper's Last Victim comes up a lot more than I'd like. Frankly, for somebody who's been dead for over 100 years, she's got some really good SEO. I just want to point that out. But, some of the books are good. So give me a shout at Mary at Productive Leaders. If you're thinking, maybe some of this stuff might help my team, I will happily chat you through some of the tools that might be helpful. I love talking to people about what might be helpful for their teams and guide you in a way so you're not wasting time.
That is excellent. That'll all be in the show notes. And I definitely encourage you to reach out, take a look at the content, put it to use, because we don't always get an opportunity with someone who is as prolific as Mary. Okay, having the tools that are out there, a lot of them you get for free, or even the coaching. I just did a podcast on coaching where that's another tool. Okay, coaching is what's going to give you time compression in your business. It's going to, you get the right coach, it's going to save you 10 years of bad decisions. We talked about decisions, costly mistakes. We talked about that, right? And possibly losing your whole business. Okay. Just because you need that set of outside eyes. So I encourage everyone to take a look. And man, Mary, thank you again. This has been fantastic. And I appreciate the time you've given us, given the country, your service, the whole thing. There's too much to thank in a list, but it's been awesome. And for everyone listening, we will see you on the next STS. Perfect. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespiritcoaching.com. Do it now.